Everyone faces dark times, no matter how rich or strong or enlightened they are. Some people do better than others. They rise to the challenge and ride the ups and downs to a successful outcome. How can you build your strength to hold and use power? When developing the quality of empowerment, one of the most crucial aspects to that skill is attunement. Attunement means that we are sensitive to the timing, sensitive to the accumulation of energy, sensitive to what we can do in the present moment. So we're very present in addition to being very attuned. Think of it this way. In order for it to rain, we've got to have clouds. And often we'll see the clouds in the distance, and they're gathering, and we know that one of these days, the clouds are going to get to us, and they're going to bring us rain, and with that rain, we can do what we need to do. Energy's the same way. We may get an inspiration and be, so ready to get going and do what we have in mind. But sometimes that energy needs the time to accumulate. So we have to wait for it to accumulate. And that often means, spending time with a little bit of research, doing some organization, getting ready in whatever way we can. And then when the opportunity's here, we're good to go. I'm sure that you have experienced the idea or had the experience of going on a roller coaster ride. You realize at the beginning of the roller coaster ride that it slowly climbs a very, very steep angle, accumulating energy so that you can get ready, get set, and go. In a roller coaster ride, you go down the other side. It looks like I may have gone crazy here, but this is the feeling that I have around the accumulation of energy. First of all, to me, energy is all about color. And there's a lot of different colors of energy and feelings to it. And being attuned to the kind of energy that you have available to you is also very helpful. For example, energy is color-coded. Red energy is all about being grounded and having a firm-rooted foundation. And if you feel that firm-rootedness, then you've got the energy for laying a foundation. If, on the other hand, the energy feels a little warmer, it's more in the orange range, then we're working in the energetic area of adaptability, flexibility. Things are starting to flow. Getting a little higher, we get into the yellow energy. Yellow is like the sun. It's expansive. It's self-expression. If you're feeling kind of hot and yellow, well, it's time to shine. The green energy is all about heart energy. It's about healing, balancing, calming, soothing. And if that's what you're feeling, then that's the way you can take your energy at this time. You get into the blues, and it's all about clarity, communication. If you get into the darker blues, you're beginning to access the energy of the intuitive knowing. And if you just feel a sense of a wondrous lavender color, well then you're really in a connecting space, pulling on that energy. So it helps to be attuned to the energies that you have available to you at any one time. To go with this idea of attunement, I would like to share a process with you called a prayer arrow, in which we will attune our energies and focus them. A prayer arrow is a beautiful way to focus your mind and your heart into the direction where you want to take your power. Now, this is a very elaborate prayer arrow because I like to make things fancy, but yours can be quite simple. And here are the things that you're going to need. It's good to have a fairly long and sturdy twig. Now, I have two choices here because the nature of the twig will reflect what your prayer arrow is saying to you. This twig has two ends. It might be about combining two ideas into one path. This twig has possibilities. We can either focus on carrying on a fairly straight path or turning the corner and following a new path. Once you've decided which direction you want the twig to go, you can take your clippers and clip off the extra limb, so to speak, the branch, and you're ready to go. The other thing you're going to need are some pieces of yarn or colored thread or even just ordinary string. It really doesn't matter what you use, just something that you would enjoy working with. And finally, an assortment of treasures. For me, every prayer arrow needs a feather. Oftentimes I will have rocks that I want to include in my arrow, or perhaps something that you've picked up from the ocean. And of course, there can be other fancy little things like tassels or even trinkets, beads or pieces of jewelry that you would like to use to add meaning to your arrow. Here's how we begin. We take our twig, and at the very end of the arrow, I usually like to start with some kind of tail. Now, it could be a feather, or in this case, I'm going to have a tassel, and I'm going to capture the tassel in a loop of my thread, like this. This is just mechanics, but it helps. The tassel, the loop, the thread on the end of my twig. And now I begin the process. During the making of a prayer arrow, you are focusing on what it is you wish to empower in your life. It's a way of simply being quiet, meditative, and thoughtful. If you can do this outdoors in nature, that's even better, because then you have the creative power all around you to remind you of what you can draw upon as you move forward in your power. As you can see, I'm making fairly good progress on covering the branch. If I wish to add my feather, then I'm going to pick it up now and I am going to include it in the wrap. Things begin to get in the way a little bit. However, you just have to work around it. You want to take this process slowly. This is, after all, a meditation, and by taking your time, you are infusing the arrow with your intention, with the direction that you wish to aim your energy. You can continue to add things. Some things are easier to add than others. I find that if they have a skinny end, you can wrap the string around that and it helps to keep it secure. A little bit of glue sometimes help, as does picture putty, which is sticky and will help create a foundation for a larger object. Now, as you get to an end of a piece of yarn, and obviously you don't have to use all of one piece, I'm using a variegated yarn, which made it really easy for me to get lots of color on one arrow. But if you decide, oops, I want to change to a different color, then you have your flap, you take another piece of yarn, you overlap, come back a ways so that you can secure both of these flaps. So I want to stop at this point to make a comment. As you proceed with the arrow and you have an idea for it, as I mentioned before, you may want to shape the twig that you're using. And so I'm going to take this occasion to cut the part of the branch off and celebrate the fact that I wish to change directions with this arrow. Now I have to keep twisting my yarn and working my way toward the end. And I don't think that I will bother to show you the whole process because that doesn't change here. But let's say that I am finished with my arrow. I've wrapped it up as much as I want to wrap it. I need to tie a knot with the yarn that's at the end, which I shall do now. And if you don't want the yarn to come undone, again, a spot of glue will help it. Or if you're good at tying knots, you can do that. As I make this arrow, I'm concentrating on focusing my power in the direction that I wish to take it. When the arrow is complete and I've added everything that I want to add to it, we have a couple of choices on what we do then. In the sample that I showed you earlier, in this prayer arrow, which I made many, many years ago, I keep this arrow close to me. I keep it in my studio to remind me of what it is that I intend. And bits and pieces of that intention are coming to be. So this still has a great deal of meaning for me. If, on the other hand, you would like to follow the tradition of the American Indians, they would make a prayer arrow and they would take their arrow and they would sacrifice it, give it as a gift to the earth. So they would take their arrow and embed it in the earth somewhere or up in a tree. And having done that, they're giving their whole path over to that wonderful earth energy to allow it to join them in their process. I hope you will enjoy this process and do it many times.